My name is Jeremy Holland, and I am a special host on my own podcast today called StartupStage Podcast. Now, I've asked my chief marketing officer if we should change the name and be, a little creative about it. And he said, what was that again?
No. It was a long answer. It was no.
He's like, no, we're good. We should just keep it exactly the way it is. Keep it short, sweet, and simple, right? That's why I love it.
I said sometimes lads like us can overcomplicate things,
It's
and
true.
sometimes it's just good to be existential and say the Startup Stage podcast. And by the way, I've hosted all the other episodes, so it might be fair to say that it's my podcast
That is actually very true, which
normally.
is why I
Right?
kind of feel a bit awkward. I almost feel as if like I'm stealing your coffin. Is that too dark that I said that? Because it is,
Hey,
or maybe just walking into your house without knocking first is kind of how I.
well, I'm a dead head, not
Ah,
dead.
that's
I think you got that
right. I knew it
confused.
was dead related. I just didn't.
I'm very much alive.
And this is actually the exact reason why I don't host this podcast because otherwise I'm not really sure anybody would listen. So, but thank you for being with us today, Brian. I
Oh, El
appreciate
Gusto es mío, for
it.
sure.
I got to tell you, I'm really excited. I'm excited about a lot of things, but
I know you are. You're
most
an
excited.
excitable boy.
I'm most excited for people to know more about you because every time people, I'm talking to people, I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to talk. My CMO Brian, like he's got all these answers. He's really smart. He's super great with copywriting, and you could just kind of think it, and he'll just kind of automatically say it without you having to say anything. It's crazy. So there's a lot of different ways I describe you, and they're all different but very accurate. It's almost as if you have like 18 personalities, but there is a common thread that kind of comes to them all.
That's what keeps it from being a disorder.
True. That actually might be that's true. This is why you're not on medication. Um, but at least as far as I know,
Yeah, you don't know that.
yeah, I shouldn't presume anything.
This whole
Um,
podcast just became a
but
HIPAA
I think
violation.
this is what makes you great, though, is because you have this incredible knack to.
Hold on. Aren't all knacks incredible?
That's a great. That's an existential question. More on that in our next podcast
When
on
is a knack?
existential questions.
That episode of that podcast will be titled "When is a knack not incredible?"
Yes, that is actually perfect. And
I
actually,
have an
one of
incredible
these is
knack.
very perfect.
Do go on
Do,
about my incredible knack.
yeah, no, your head's already getting big, but we'll get there. So here's the thing: I would like people to know more about, obviously, Brian Castle, and CEO and founder of Park Life Communications, and how it all started. Because it's a very interesting contrast. Because you were a banker
Yep.
that turned into a marketing genius, or was it you were a marketing genius masking as a banker, then you came out as who you are now? Can you walk us through that, Brian?
Sure, sure. And thank you for having me on what's now evidently your podcast. So, so the I'm a classic accidental entrepreneur. That's a thing.
Mhm.
Um, I Googled it one day because I think of my life sometimes as a series of grand accidents, and so I will tell you I don't know if I'm a marketing genius, but I am a creative whirling dervish. I'm a creative person, and I was always I always gravitated to writing. I wrote a lot in high school, wrote a lot in college, majored in creative writing, and was editor of my college newspaper. Met my wife working on the college newspaper. I did what every great writer would do. I went to work for banks. And I worked for banks for like 11 years, got fired a couple of times. I remember getting fired that last time. The guy just telling me, he said, well, before he fired me, he wrote me up, which I think is comical now. Do companies still write people up?
Yeah, they do.
Like, it's
They still
just
do.
dumb. It's just dumb.
Depends on the company, though.
I have more respect for getting fired than written up. So he wrote me up one time, and I can't remember what the core subject was, but he was like digging and insulting me on multiple fronts. One of the things he said was, so, on our Friday call, just give me the numbers when I call on you. And I said, you mean when you say, how are things going at your branch? And he goes, yeah, you always like give a bunch of color and tell some stories. I just need the numbers. And I said, oh, you mean the ones that I'm supposed to email you by 5 o'clock on Thursday? You just want me to repeat them verbally? And
I love you.
I would have loved to have I would have loved to have that guy
You on video?
one of those brain monitor brainwave. Because my theory is he just looked at me and goes, yeah. Like, he didn't see the absurdity of it.
Yeah.
It was like Arrested Development level absurd comedy to me. I'm going, so if it's about the numbers and I'm emailing you the spreadsheet with the numbers the day before, why do I have to come to the damn call anyway? Why don't we just cut that part out where I repeat the numbers? Let's just don't have a call.
Yeah. It's funny because you and I think exactly the same way when it comes to that kind of stuff. I
Yeah,
think there's a lot of things that are unnecessary, and that is a great example of why I've probably had a tumultuous past working for others because it's like same stuff. It's like, what do we
it's a
do with this?
common thread among entrepreneurs is that we were terrible employees.
It's very true.
And I think I was like one of the terribler ones. But my wife, when I got fired that second time, and I got fired by the guy that told me not to answer the question of how it was going at my office, but just to regurgitate what he already had on paper. And I didn't know if it was an integrity test to see if I could remember what I emailed him or what. But I still haven't figured that out 17 years later. But my wife said, you were a writer when I met you. Why don't you try to write? Don't apply for bank jobs. And so I
So
reached
she,
out to some former clients, like former as in they were my clients 48 hours prior. Getting fired. And
that's a great.
said, hey, I just want to keep you in my life and
Wow,
keep, two of them hired me immediately,
that's awesome.
give me a shot at freelance copywriting. And so fast forward several years, I always kept a college kid around to keep my day job honest. And I had landed a corporate marketing job, small company. And it just built up over time because even though it was a side hustle that I didn't care about, I always care about who I'm working with. And I was
Mhm.
working with some really cool entrepreneurs. All of them were entrepreneurs. And it kind of grew to the point where I was like, I might want to start growing this thing.
Let me ask you a question too, because you have
Yeah.
worked with so many different entrepreneurs, and
Yeah.
what is what do you think the bit? Well, not what do you think, but what is the most common issue you see with young founders? Actually, you know what? I'm just kind of curious about founders in general because you don't just deal with young founders, and I think as we've known in the last couple of years, the average age of founders are now about 45 years old with an 80% success rate because over the last couple of years it's been rough. People have left businesses, high end jobs, could not find high end jobs. I really got sick of kind of what you just talked about, right? With the bank example of like, why are we doing these things when we should be doing maybe these things a little better? So they all just said, I'm starting my own business and they're doing really well. So there really isn't just a young man or woman's game anymore.
So what I see is typically a hyper focus on product or service. And a partial to complete neglect of brand. Um, and so you can see people who might develop a service that's good to great, but they're not achieving their full potential because people aren't connecting with them on that mysterious level that we connect with brands on.
I love that you said that because this is one of the things that has always astounded me about you is, and it's something that I kind of knew existed. I just didn't really have the words around it. Of course, you did. When we first met, it's like you were able to extract and know exactly, almost like you were reading my soul, like word for
Well, you're
word,
a
because I'm
soulful
like,
dude. You're a
it was
soulful
crazy.
dude. You got a big soul.
Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. I will send you a check for that. Thank you, very. That was very sweet. Um, but what I love about you is you are a big brand guy, but it's not about like, okay, we're going to manufacture a brand. What you do is you literally dig in and you uncover what that
Not
brand
literally,
is.
figuratively, though.
Figuratively dig in. Well, you were digging into my soul. I guess it was figuratively too,
Yeah, I
but
wasn't
okay.
using sharp tools or anything.
No, you weren't. Yeah, you were around them, but yeah, but that's what was so great about you. And so every time we have conversations and we have these great founders, right, that are, I mean, it seems to me like the last thing they think about, or some of the last things, is right before they go to market. Okay, well, like, what is our brand? What are we doing? And they always think it's what it's not, and that's where you come in. And so, can you actually define brand?
Yeah, absolutely. So, your brand, too many people think it's the logo. When people say, I need a logo, I say, you need a visual brand identity. You probably also need a brand message, like foundational brand messaging. And you also need a plan to build that brand and implement that brand because brands, there's beginnings of brand, there's brand creation, as I like to call it, and then there's brand building. Everything either builds or detracts from your brand on down to your customer's experience with you as part of your brand as much as your logo is. The If you run commercials, the music you pick, soundtrack.
Is it fair to say that brand is kind of equates to the emotions that you want someone to feel when they see that icon or see a logo or image or product service?
It's associative, yeah. It's
Yeah. Okay.
associative. So, like with, and I'm telling you, I'm such a big believer in this. I could believe in it because of clients, but I'm a skeptical person by nature. I'm very Gen X, very skeptical, very punk. I neglected brand at Park Life for about the first 11 years, mainly because I didn't care about my business. It was a little fun side hustle thing. But I kind of had an awakening the last 3 or 4 years, especially as I said, okay, I'm sitting on top of a potential fun gold mine here where I can grow a business, be my own boss, never have somebody try to think of 10 ways on some HR document that I'm a piece of garbage, um, that I can be free. My big motivation going into business was I don't want to work for banks anymore.
And also, you're not a guy that can be put in a box. I mean, you really can't be.
And
You
that
need
becomes more true all the time because I've been feral now for so long.
yep,
And
100%.
so I decided, when I really started thinking about growing this thing, I was like, I need to focus on brand. I need to think about, and for me, joy in my day to day life is probably the biggest motivating factor.
Let me ask you this. I mean, again, because you're so good at branding, I don't want you to give away your secret sauce. Although I'm not really sure you could,
I'm not
because I
worried
think
about it because I don't worry about
it's
other people's ability to copy my secret sauce.
I was gonna say, I think it's also it's innate. Like it really truly is. Like it is. It's not a magic trick or anything like that. It is absolutely incredible because I've seen you do it not only to me, but obviously with all these other people we've done business with and helped, provide branding stuff for. And it's given me such a tremendous understanding of brand, but more or less, like it's really given me a better context for myself, but also I see some of the results of the before and after, right? Our founders, before I introduce you to them, and then the after, and just the way they look, the way they feel, and the way that they're like, there's a different hum to them,
Yep.
if you will,
More
right? And
approachable, more accessible.
yes, and it's like it is, and I think that it nails it. It's like they kind of come into you not knowing who they are, and they leave you, and sometimes it could be minutes. It was for me anyway. And then, but sometimes it depends on the process, right? But it's a pretty quick one, and there's just so much confidence. Which down the road, when you're pitching your business to clients, prospects, M&A possibilities, you want to sell it, investors, who knows? Like all of that's important, but I think the most important part is obviously attracting the right customer and making sure that they understand and feel that emotion that the founder feels. So, like, I don't know if there's a way to do this, but to put you on the spot, like, are there a top three things that you kind of do, or is it completely different every time?
No, I would say that, the playbook is pretty similar, whether you're a product business, service business, nonprofit, is you've got to give people a reason to connect with you, stay with you, advocate for you, champion you. That's how businesses grow, right? Doesn't matter if it's a new beverage on the market or a marketing agency. God knows what you're doing with your startup ecosystem. That's been done a million different ways, right? You're
Except
different
this,
and you got to show people that. So that's why
yeah,
you've been focusing heavily. I watched it and part of it. So it's all about the visuals, it's the messaging. So that's the foundation of the house. Then you start building,
yeah,
then you start drying it in, then you
yep.
start furnishing it. And one of my
What's
favorite
amazing,
questions to ask people who've been in business a while, I always say, gosh, what I'm seeing is great. You're not perfect. I can help you in some ways, but good Lord, there's a lot to appreciate. I would have loved to have been there as you built this because I love the journey. I love that
mm-hmm.
brand building part. So you got to get that duality right in the beginning and then just kind of keep building on it consistently. So about 3, 4 years ago, Carly, producer Carly, hi Carly. Carly and I sat down and I was like, music and lyrics. She wrote the music, all the visuals, and I'm the wordsmith. So I started outlining vision, mission, values, elevator pitch, value proposition, stakeholder specific messaging for customers, strategic partners, different types of customers. Because my business has a few different valuable use cases. We can be a bolt-on marketing department for
Mm-hmm.
companies that
Yeah,
want to scale with either a super strategic person at the top of the pyramid, and then we come in and execute, or we can shapeshift where I'll be your fractional CMO and then
mm-hmm.
bring all the people to bear to execute.
Yep.
Uh,
How big is your team now? Because I know it's grown, and you
347 as of yesterday.
it does feel like that. You guys get a lot of stuff done. You
Feels like a
guys,
million.
it
Only
is amazing.
347.
And it's funny. I tell people this too. I'm like, I don't know how Brian does it, but it's like all of his people are incredibly gifted in like different aspects, but also in these areas that kind of definitely come together. But if you see them all together, they're different. But when you talk to them, they're like clones of one another, but yet not clones
So
because they all know different stuff and they just work just really well together. It is probably, honestly, in all of my years of recruiting and managing teams, like, you have put together a really amazing team.
So I think about this a lot. I think a lot of it's luck.
I'll take luck.
But I also like to think, because I don't ever like tell people how to act, but I've just found, I find myself with people who will put in an honest shift, who will go above and beyond for the client, who pour their hearts into the creative. If I deserve credit for anything, it's like creating flexible frameworks for people to perform within. And one thing, you call yourself the anti-accelerator. I should almost call myself the anti-agency.
That's actually, I love that, by
It's
the
one
way.
thing, like 9 out of 10 agencies, with the one being Park Life. 9 out of 10 agencies, you come to them with a request, and it's all about them and what they have time for. And by the way, most of these agencies who will tell you, no, that can't be done in 3 days. We'd need about 2 weeks. They're still overworking the shit out of their staffs and having these
Mm-hmm.
toxic cultures. Mine, I think, most of the time, a bunch of people who love each other, love their clients, we say yes pretty much every time somebody needs something. But we kind of create these flexible frameworks where, based on how the work is allocated, if somebody has an immediate need, we move the work around.
So this is what I honestly think is the most amazing thing about Startup Stage are our experts, people like you, right? And that's kind of been the hardest part, I would say, with building Startup Stage, right? Because not just anybody can be a part of this team, right? I mean, you can't just be, a really good marketeer, whatever the actual word is for it, right? But you have to have this love for doing exactly what you just said, which that was, we were on the same page the day that we spoke on the phone. And that's one of the things I think we talked about was we both had a love for just like being helping other human beings, I think, is how you put it. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I love the way you put that, right? And you get rewarded for being human. Sometimes it's monetary, sometimes it's in, you know, reciprocation, right? But it just feels good. And you know you're doing the right thing. And I've known you a lot of years, and I've seen you in a lot of circumstances, and I can 100% say that you always over deliver whatever the price is. Like you get more value. And it's just one of those things where it's a natural progression. Like you said, like you kind of start with maybe a piece of what people need, but then you're also keeping the longer term thing and what's in that person's best interest. And what I love also, we're dealing with founders in a lot of cases where they're bootstrapped. We love bootstrap founders because they make smart decisions. And when they finally come to the decision, they act quickly and they engage quickly. And we love those people. But I've also seen you say, okay, I understand, like, we're going to take your budget and we're gonna do this, but then you always seem to deliver that.
I always tell people, like, no matter what your number is, I want to max it out, and something else, you really want to know what motivates me. And this is littered all over our brand. I tell people, and this is very true, I'm a hell of a writer. I love to write,
Yep.
but
You write our newsletter for a reason.
no, but for me, it's not about the what, it's about the who. And so when I sat down a few years ago, Carly was working on the visual brand, and I gave her some inputs. They're modern, progressive, ever changing, things like that. When I sat down, I focused on who I was in business for. And you come from the world of staffing and recruitment. Everything I did was kind of like, I want to work with cool people doing cool stuff for cool people. So I started thinking, who are my cool people? And, in the world of who I want to work with, it's fellow creatives, writers, designers, video producers, and the like, web people, but from clients. I love entrepreneurs. I love social innovators, people in the nonprofit and mission driven for profit, and I love thought leaders. Those three, common denominator is they look at the status quo and they don't abide by it. I've heard it over and over and over again. Ellen Murphy from Sona, I thought for years about there should really be an app for this. There should be something that delivers ultrasounds with the elegance that the cameras can capture besides that thermal paper. She figured out after a while, I can't abide this anymore. I got to step up. For me,
Ellen,
it was being misunderstood. I saw a common thread with creative people that work in corporate marketing agencies. They're misunderstood. They're not appreciated. People that other people think are incorrigible. I want those wild ass people on my team. you know, so it's about the who. I think we have that in common. This isn't called uh, corporate franchise lead stage.
well, you're right. But so here's something I did learn in the recruiting industry is the fact that, when you find a really good person who's really good at what they do, but just a good human, it's always easy to find more because they're all hanging out with each other, right? Because they kind of attract one another, right? They hang out with one another, and so it's kind of the same thing here too. I mean, we are attracting some really awesome founders. You mentioned Ellen with Sona. I mean, just her story is crazy. I know you've, I think there's a podcast already done, right? Or maybe soon to be released that
Yep.
is with her on it. And just, I love her story, man. She has such a great one. We have more coming up of some really cool stuff, as you well know. But I like that part of it too. When you and I actually, over the years, right? So when I told you I was buying StartupStage and I had a vision for it, um, what was your answer? Well, and I said, "Hey, do you think this would be a good idea? This is what I think I want to do."
Yeah. So I told you not to buy the business because I didn't feel like it fit as a distribution channel for your old business that you were building at the time. And a couple of weeks go by, and you say, "Hey, I bought that business," and I was like, I didn't think my dad was making my brother listen to my advice. I'm an older brother, right? And all the time, and I'm older than all my siblings. And one of my siblings is a marriage and family therapist, and she says there's this thing in family birth order when you have a oldest child that's way older than the rest, that the dynamic there, it's called parentification. And so the parents
Mm.
bring, and it's amazing. I mean, I was grocery shopping for the family as a young child. I was doing all kind of stuff. My parents would always rope me into these things. Hey, your brother's looking for a job and needs some advice. And I was like, well, he knows where I am. Well, no, we need you to. And I was always drawing me into these things. And so with you, I was thinking, did my dad make him talk to me and give him advice? So, but then I think you appreciated it. You began to appreciate it on a different level, and it kind of transcended that old business. And you started pursuing this thing for what it could be, like on its own. And you and I like to talk about the point O's, the point O of the founder, an amazing guy who built this thing, as often great tech platforms are built. Let's just create a cool experience. We'll worry about how to monetize it later. And then you bought it and you're like, I got to monetize this thing. I just bought this thing. I don't want to just build something. Um, so, you, so you started thinking about how to monetize it. And I love telling the story about how you're like Ferris Bueller talking to the audience. You're not hiding behind the technology. You're breaking the fourth wall. You're just randomly emailing and calling people. Can you imagine how
True.
startling that had been for some? I bet some of them might have told you, Never had anybody call me from some website I signed up for. You know, but you figured it out and you iterated and iterated and you know, that'll never stop. The iterating never stops.
Uh,
Uh,
well, what I fell in love with was obviously the what it could be, and I knew I had this like fuzzy vision of what it could be, but what I knew is that I could pull out of what I used to have. One of those major incredible components is you and your team, and put them into this and create this moat around it to protect the people within it, meaning that our founders, right? Founders can kind of come into this private community, and instead of going on Reddit and getting bashed, I don't know why Reddit people do that. They're really good at bashing the crap out of people. They're really good at it. And then, but social media is just everyone's looking. And we did some research and it was like, again, the average founder has 6.4 free communities that they spend 7 hours a weekend, 7 hours per week, every single week, and that's $1,200 minimum, right? Just running average time on very small companies, but it actually gets a little bit higher as you're doing that. And the reason why they're in 6.4 is because they can't find what they're looking for in the
right.
other 4.4, 5.4, whatever the number is. And so we're like, and they're raising their hands like, where do we go? Like, where can you go just to get help from people that are founders that know what it's like to be a founder? Number one. Number two, just kind of have everything in one spot. And I was like, that's what we need. That's what we got to have. That's what this needs to be. There's no other way around it. And so I luckily had this awesome nucleus of people like yourself that I'm like, oh my gosh, having these people in the center and then having this be a really cool community where everyone's kind of on the same page because they're all like just crazy smart, but they're super focused and serious founders and they really want to grow. And there really isn't a such thing as a bad question, maybe unnecessary ones at certain times. But I mean, having the ability and chance to like put something out there and not get some smart ass remark back, but to actually get something back from, maybe it's a branding question, and somebody wants to know, like, how do I know that? Like, how can I set that up? And then all of a sudden they're getting a message from you saying, hey, let's set up a call, let's chat through it, and like this is how it works. Like, there's tremendous value in
I
that.
think so too, man. And I tell people all the time. I was telling somebody earlier today. I'm in my early 50s. I feel like I've got enough friends in general, kind of socially on a personal level. And I'm always pleasantly surprised when new personal friendships happen. I'm not a jerk. But you cannot have enough friends in business. You just can't. And if you're a founder, there's, a lot of us start off as side hustles. Once that main hustle goes away and this is your main hustle, or if you just launch a business not as a side hustle, there's no, your safety net is your network, your friends, your advisors. Like I wake up with every single day with my great team that I know has my back, can deliver whatever checks I go out and write, saying, "Oh yeah, we'll do da da da." I know they can do it, and they'll exceed every day. But I also know on the days I get really down that there's a whole bunch of people I can call, even if I just need to feel better in the moment, much less, hey, I've got an idea on how I'm going to diversify my revenue to try to shore this up, this pattern that keeps happening, bringing us down. Having somebody to bounce that off of, and much less somebody that you can go to, not have to give up your equity. And I'm a big believer in it, giving up equity when it makes sense. I work for a venture capital firm. It makes sense a lot. A lot of times, you're better left to get a little help or a lot of help and refine that thing yourself. keep that precious equity because it's precious.
Yeah, and get there faster. Time is money. Obviously, everyone
Mm-hmm.
knows that. And when you're wasting 7 hours a week, you don't think about it. You think, oh, cool, this is just a free kind of low hanging fruit thing. And you start putting the math to it. It's like, whoa, okay, I need to probably think about where I'm spending
Right.
my time, because the time doesn't stop for anybody, right? And so you only have so many hours in the day, but you wonder why at the end of the week you're not getting all your things done, or promoting your business, or doing things that are going to get you to that next
Right.
rung of whatever it is, MRR or growth, and however you're going to measure it. But you're right. And you brought up a really good point, and kind of close out at this too, because this is the most important thing in a founder's life. And I don't care how many times you've been a founder, it may get a little easier. We're all multi time founders in a lot
Yeah.
of cases, right, within this community. But there are days where you just feel like you're crushing it, right? And then all of a sudden the next day, it's like, oh my gosh, like there's this fear. What's happening? The economy's going crazy. I don't know. There's tariffs, new presidents. I mean, things happen, right? I don't know. Rivers are flooding over. I mean, you never
Yeah.
know, right? It's like, and you just start questioning everything. I know I've called you couple hundred times in our friendship, and I'm like, Brian, I'm not really sure I should be doing this. How do I get out of it? What am I doing wrong? Like, why isn't this working? And you've talked me off many ledges, and I think that's what community is all about. Because you're right, your real friends truly come out when you need them. Like you can have 1,000 people in your address book, right? But let's say you lost everything, and like you're really just kind of out there, like sitting on the corner, right? I mean, kind of like down and out. And then the 4, 5, 6 friends that actually call you or drive by and see you or check on you, those are your people, right? And so, but what I've noticed about founders is they're always looking out for each other, the serious ones, the good ones. And that's what makes all of you guys amazing, because you guys are all founders and you know what it's like to be a founder. So it's like you automatically have that, I know how you're feeling, trust me. But then now you feel that full of other people that are on that same, build, launch, scale, enterprise, and then you have them in their own little separate groups, but yet still have them able to talk to one another. That's
It
pretty
is. I can
powerful.
remember some of the first entrepreneurs that I worked with when I was still a corporate guy. And I noticed a common thread, a common denominator. They were all just to a person. They had this generosity of spirit. They never turned down a call. They never turned down a meeting. They never turned down an opportunity to help somebody because they were cognizant of what had been done for them and what people are always doing for them, and they're grateful for it. And I don't care if it's golden rule, karma, every religion and culture in the world has a concept of do this shit so people do it for you. And just kind of and put it out there without thinking about the payback or whatever. Just be generous. And I've had so many. I am the sum of all the people who have invested in me. And that's why I try to invest in as many people as I can, in as many contacts,
Yeah.
whatever is the right fit in a given situation.
I think the best way to close this out, um, is to have literally big letters on the screen that says "Be rewarded for just being a good human." Brian Castle. Because it's very true. The day you said it, it resonates with me all the time. And that's what we try to do every single day with everybody. You do it extremely well. Um, and I love that you're a part of this team, man. I really do. You're an amazing person. So I'm glad you said yes. I'm glad you were able to help me see the visions of getting StartupStage and helping some of these founders, excel extremely quickly, up to where their goals and beyond are. And your breadth of knowledge is just incredible. Your team is amazing. I love it. I love that you guys are part of it again. So thank you very much for your time on your podcast that I'm special co-host for my own podcast called the Startup Stage
That's right.
podcast.
That's right. Thank you for
And
saying
so
all that. I don't take that for granted for a second. I'll close with telling you the highest praise I can get from a client. Um, I've had two tell me this recently, and I'm just drunk on it. Um, one of them said, "You just really get what we're trying to do." And then I had one yesterday say, "Brian and his team, they don't just get it, they elevate it."